In a similar vein, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control registered 40 Lassa fever-related deaths in January, with 4 health workers infected with the deadly disease in latest outbreak of the disease in the country. This is coming as the federal government, through the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, says it is working towards developing Lassa fever vaccines to combat the outbreak. Trust TV's ICYMI reports.
In reaction to the latest situation report by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control on the Lassa fever disease outbreak, the Executive Director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Faisal Shuaib, says there has been massive improvement in diagnosis as the federal government works assiduously to develop vaccines against the Lassa fever outbreak.
Lassa fever, as you can see, is now a seasonal disease. It comes in outbreaks, and we're working with the with the Nigerian Center for Disease Control to see how we can have earlier diagnosis and treatment against Lassa fever. Unfortunately, what we find is that it's the health workers that are frequently affected because in the end, patients go to the health facilities to get treated. We've seen people, health workers particularly, die in Benue, in Nasarawa State, and our heart goes out to the families of those health workers. But clearly, we've seen a very massive improvement in terms of diagnosis for Lassa fever. Some years ago, it was difficult. You only had maybe a center that could adequately diagnose Lassa fever, but we've seen an improvement. What the federal government is doing largely now is to see how, just like we did with Ebola virus, how we can actually develop a vaccine against Lassa fever. Once we're able to develop a vaccine, we believe that we'll be taking very strong steps towards being able to contain these outbreaks of Lassa fever year in, year out.
Okay, so moving on to the poliomyelitis, a new variant of the disease has been reported. Do you entertain any fears that Nigeria may lose its status as a polio-free country?
So Nigeria is not at risk of losing the
National Lassa Fever Technical Working Group of the NCDC says the disease is preventable, while urging Nigerians to be cautious of the risk factors of the disease.
We have the Lassa fever high transmission season, in as much as cases are reported all through the year. But between November up until May is a season which is classified as a high transmission season. So this season is where over 80% of our cases, when over 80% of our cases are reported. So this is a dry season. So some of the factors that drive this high number of cases during the dry season would include bush burning activities in preparation for the next farming season. So this tends to displace the rodents from their natural habitats to the homes. And also drying of foodstuffs at the roadside. So as you drive around the country now, you see lots of foodstuffs, grains being dried by the roadside. So in the process of this drying, the rodents can contaminate the foodstuffs, and then when it is consumed, the person can become infected. And the other thing is poor harvesting and storage, facilities. So if the crops are not well stored, the rodents can have access and contaminate them. The other key thing is hunting of rodents. So in the process of hunting and handling this rodent for processing for either foods, there are some cultural practices that include consumption of rodents. So these are all risk factors that could lead to exposing one to the Lassa fever virus and then becoming infected with the disease.
It is, however, advised that health workers maintain a high index of suspicion for any patient presenting with atypical symptoms of the disease. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.